AI is rewriting the business playbook, with productivity boosts and faster decision-making coming to every industry. If you're not thinking about AI, you can bet your competition is. This is not where you want to drop the ball. But AI requires a lot of compute power. And with most cloud platforms, the cost for your AI workloads can spiral. That is, unless you're running on OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This was the cloud built for AI, a blazing fast enterprise-grade platform for your infrastructure, database, apps, and all your AI workloads. OCI costs 50% less than other major hyperscalers for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Thousands of businesses have already scored with OCI, including Vodafone, Thomson Reuters, and Suno AI. Now the ball's in your court.
Right now, Oracle can cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI. Minimum financial commitment and other terms apply. Offer ends March 31st. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
In a world of economic uncertainty and workplace transformation, learn to lead by example from visionary C-suite executives like Shannon Schuyler of PwC and Will Pearson of iHeartMedia.
The good teacher explains, the great teacher inspires.
Don't always leave your team to do the work. That's been the most important part of how to lead by example.
Listen to Leading by Example, Executives Making an Impact on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Pod of Rebellion, our new Star Wars Rebels rewatch podcast. I'm Vanessa Marshall, voice of Harrison Dula Spectre 2.
I'm Tia Sircar, Sabine Wren, Spectre 5.
I'm Taylor Gray, Ezra Bridger, Spectre 6.
And I'm John Lee Brody, the Ghost Crew Stowaway moderator.
Each week, we're going to rewatch and discuss an episode from the series and share some fun behind-the-scenes stories.
Sometimes we'll be visited by special guests like Steve Bloom, voices Zabarelio Spectre 4, or Dante Bosco, voice of Jaikel, and many others.
So hang on, because it's going to be a fun ride.
Cue the music.
Listen to Pod of Rebellion on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 494, Commuting with an E-Bike in Any Weather, with Kevin Ha.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And I am so excited for this conversation because we always talk about the three biggest expenses you have every month are housing, transportation, and food. And when we talk about transportation, it's always, don't get an auto loan, get a cheap car, save on auto insurance. And the most radical idea for anyone is usually go down to a one-car family. Mm-hmm. But there is a radical middle in transportation, and I truly believe that it's e-bikes. But there are so many barriers to entry on it, and our friend Kevin smashing them all. So if you want to save money on transportation and you're looking for that radical middle, this is it.
This was, I just said to you, Jen, a conversation that I just loved being in. I honestly forgot we were recording. I just wanted to know all of the things. Who knew we could talk for 45 minutes about e-biking? but we did. And I really think it's going to at least challenge us on the way that we approach transportation. Even if it doesn't mean you're immediately going and getting an e-bike, there are still other things we can think about related to this topic.
Yeah.
But first, this is brought to you by Getting There, because sometimes it is about the destination. Whether you rode your bike, walked, ran, scootered, drove, rode the bus, arriving, actually getting there feels great. And speaking of getting there, we want to help you experience more freedom and confidence with your money by teaching the skills of values-based spending and budgeting through a 5-week course that we are currently creating. It's going to be full of videos, tutorials, templates where we set you up for long-term management of all aspects of your finances. So we're looking at the 4 pillars of frugality and money, from time to, of course, money, physical space, natural resources, food. We want to look at spending and investing, cover you on all of these bases. Right now, it's available for pre-order. If we sell enough, if we get enough interest through our pre-orders, then we will finish making the course. If we don't, we're going to refund you your money. This is us just seeing, do you actually want this? Do you need this? Does this sound like something that is going to be beneficial to you?
If you've ever complained about the ads in our show and you're like, I wish they would get rid of some of those, this is our proposed solution. And it's just something we're trying. We'll see. If it doesn't work and you don't want to buy it and you would rather listen to advertising, also okay. Totally okay with you on that.
Let's remind them of the link.
It is frugalfriendspodcast.com/frugalhome. And you can also get the link in the friend letter, and you can learn more and pre-order the course there. If we sell, we're not saying the number, but if we sell a minimum amount, then we will finish the course and you will get it within a month of purchase. And if we don't, within 1 week of purchase, well, not 1 week of purchase, 1 week after pre-sale closes, we're going to refund everyone. So
when it comes to feeling good about your money, we're going to help you get there.
We really want to help you get there, and we're just brainstorming ways to do that.
Brought to you by Getting There.
Getting There. Okay, so Kevin Ha is the creator of financialpanther.com. I met him in 2016. We were both baby bloggers at FinCon, and he's written about personal finance and financial independence. But what I have found most fascinating about Kevin is he is a primary transportation mode is e-bike. He has 2 young children. He lives in Minnesota, where it is obviously cold and snowy in the winter, and still primary form of transportation is e-bike year round, even with his children. And so I wanted to talk to him because we often think in things like this that it is a total all or nothing. And maybe I don't get a car and I get a bike instead. And that's a really hard and not always feasible transition. So where do we find the radical middle on transportation? You are most likely not going to be all in like Kevin, but we want him to inspire you to find your radical middle and just kind of expand what you think is possible when it comes to saving on transportation.
Let's get into it. Let's hear from Kevin.
Kevin, welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. I am so excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
This is such a fun topic. We say that one of our biggest categories of expenses is transportation, and yet we've never really done an episode on alternative forms of transportation. We've done alternative housing solutions, and of course, a ton of episodes on how to save on food. So this one, to get into the nitty-gritty on transportation, I am here for it.
Yes. Okay, so Kevin, take us on the journey. How did you find yourself getting into e-bikes and using that as a primary form of transportation?
Yeah, so I have always been a bike commuter, and I used a regular bike for most of my life, mainly using bike share bikes, those big heavy ones. And that's how I got to work and back like all year round, even in the winter in Minnesota. And in 2019, I went on like a trip to Dallas, and they had these like bike share, like bike shares, like these free floating ones. And I used that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can never go back to a regular bike now. And I remember me and my wife, we were just like biking around all over the city on these like bike share e-bikes. And, 2019 was still kind of like new for like e-bikes. And so as soon as I got back home, I was like, I'm definitely getting an e-bike. So I bought an e-bike for $1,500, like a rad power bike, which I still have. And that was like my primary mode of transport for a long, long time, just using that bike to get around. And the $1,500 I spent on it definitely saved me. I definitely made my money back for sure. Because not only was I using that to transport myself, get around, but I also used it to do like food deliveries with DoorDash and Uber Eats and stuff, which is kind of like my thing I do. And so I easily paid for the bike, just like doing deliveries and biking around.
Oh, man. So many questions, but I'm going to start here. Did you ever own a vehicle? Do you still also have a vehicle, or are you all in on the e-bike?
Yeah. So our household is a one-car household. We have an electric car that we use as the primary car, but I myself drive that car like once a year, maybe. Like I very rarely drive. My wife uses the car to get herself to work because she works pretty far out in the suburbs. Although in the summer, she will bike to work too. It's like a 18-mile bike ride, and she'll do it on an e-bike in like an hour.
Wow.
So it is possible even for long rides.
Right.
But for myself, I mainly get around with the e-bike, and we also have two kids, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and that is our primary mode of transport to and from daycare, and just getting around everywhere.
There's a mom at our elementary school who also e-bikes her 2 kids to school every morning. She says it's about a 30-minute ride. And there are a lot of parents doing this with kids.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was going to be a question a little bit later on, but since we're here, I am so curious to talk about that. How are you where do the kids go?
So let's talk about some of those barriers. Like first, the kids. How do they, from infancy all the way to like your 4-year-old? How do you transport them?
Yeah, so this is a good kind of topic to talk about because, when I started in the e-bike world, I didn't have kids when I first got my first bike. And so, when you're riding just like yourself around, it's very easy, right? You just hop on a bike and go. Once I had my first kid, then I had to like figure out what I was going to do. And so when I had one kid, I just had it was just like a regular e-bike, and it had a rack on the back that I would put like a seat, like a bike seat on it. And my son would just go on the back there. We started taking him around on that when he was about 1 year old. Because at that time we lived really close to our daycare, so I could just walk him there. But then we moved, and then I had to start biking him on the back of the bike. So one kid, very easy, stick him on the back of the bike. Once you had 2 kids, it adds another challenge. For that one, I ended up getting this cargo bike. And we can talk about cargo bikes because these are like the big game changers. But I got one cargo bike that's called an Urban Arrow. It's like a front loading bike. It's kind of like a big bucket in the front. And both my kids just go in that now. My youngest kid started going in that bike when he was about 5 months old, because it has like an adapter that you could put like a car seat into it.
Wow.
And like attach it in. And so it was like great having that. And now that they're both a little older, I also got a long tail cargo bike, which is like, it's basically just a bike, but it's like twice as long, and 2 kids can fit on the back of it really easily. And that one kind of is good to ride around in because it's rides more like a regular bike, whereas like the front loader bike kind of takes a little bit of a learning curve to ride because it's a little bit different of a look of a bike. But both bikes, once you're like start riding them, it's really, you like pick it up real quick.
And probably so fun for the kids. Talk about a much better way of commuting to and from school or daycare. But so speaking of barriers with that, one of the things that comes to mind for me, and I haven't done any research on this, but I've always been curious about safety laws around this. I mean, I know that this is not unusual for many other countries to, pile a bunch of people on a bike or a scooter or a motorcycle. It's just not super common in the States. And also, I think we've got a little bit more regulations, especially around carting kids around. What have you run into with that?
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't know of any like rules about how you ride your kids around. Like, I do have like general safety things I do with the kids. Like they put helmets on and I am very careful when I'm riding. And I'm fortunate that I live in a city that has pretty good bike infrastructure for an American city. But, in general, it's just like, riding a bike, you're not like going like crazy fast or anything. And as long as you're just like kind of an aware rider and you kind of are comfortable, you will, it's like not any more dangerous, I don't think, than driving around a car where, you can get in a crash also.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's been one of my biggest barriers. And my husband and I, we have a car. We are also a one vehicle household, although it's just the two of us. We don't have any kids, but we also have two scooters, like two Honda Metropolitan scooters. So somewhat similar to the e-bike, but there are, of course, some differences as far as like where we can park it. But that's been, even on the scooter, one of my barriers is just like the safety of the roads. There are certain roads around us that to get from where we live to downtown, you've got like one option and it is a pretty dangerous stretch for about a mile or two. But yeah, I'm curious for you, like what you found. I'm sure that not every road feels super safe, how you've navigated kind of that safety aspect.
Right. And, this is something that kind of takes a little bit of experience to like understand the safest routes to take, because you're absolutely right, and that is a barrier. Is people are nervous riding a bike, especially riding a bike with their kids, and a lot of it has to do with our cities being kind of poorly designed so that they force you to drive around, and that is a failure of a city when they make it so that you can't get around safely on a bike or walking or whatever. I do think that most cities, even really car-centric cities, do have ways to get around. You just have to kind of look and figure out the best routing for you. I use a lot of Google Maps if I'm like doing a route I'm unfamiliar with. And, I'll like look at the satellite view and try to see like, is there something, some sort of separated path or something here that's makes it a little safer. Because you're right, I'm not going on like a huge street with my kids. I don't like to go on a huge street by myself even. And so it does take a little bit of practice to figure out your routes that you want to take.
Yeah, it is. It's a barrier to getting into biking or e-biking, but it's a barrier I think we build up bigger in our heads. Because I'm like, yeah, like I feel unsafe. I don't have great balance on anything. I got on Travis's e-bike and he was like, yeah, I put it on 3 for you. Or I put it down to 3 for you. And I was like, nope. And I put it like down to 1 because I just don't have great balance. But I'm like, we have a trail. We have a bike trail and an e-bike is a bike. So you could just go on the trail and there are no cars on that. So like, I think it's just we're in the car mindset. So you don't have to pay attention to less direct routes or biking lanes and trails. But when you put yourself in the biking mindset, it's like that. When you see a red Jeep once and then now everybody has a red Jeep, when you ride the bike, now every road, opens up to biking.
Every road can be ridden.
Yeah.
Well, no, and you're right about that because whenever I'm even like going anywhere, I look for the bike infrastructure, right? I look and see and so I'll be like in the burbs and driving somewhere and I'll be like, hey, look, there's like a multi-use path right there. And it's like something you wouldn't notice if you're not really paying attention to what's around you.
So true.
There are a few important things we believe everyone should be doing with their money, one of them being securing term life insurance for yourself. It's one of the best ways to prepare for the unexpected, and we're thrilled to introduce you to a company that gives you coverage and peace of mind in just minutes.
Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done right from your couch, all online and on your schedule. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. If you've got kids, and especially if you're young and healthy, the time to lock in low rates is now.
Even if you have life insurance through your employer, it may not offer enough protection for your family, and it may not follow you if you leave your job. We like Fabric for their flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day.
Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/frugal. That's meetfabric.com/frugal. MEET fabric.com/frugal. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hey y'all, I'm Maria Fernanda Diez. My podcast, When You're Invisible, is my love letter to the working class people and immigrants who shaped my life. I get to talk to a lot of people who form the backbone of our society, but who have never been interviewed before. Season 2 is all about community, organizing, and being underestimated.
All the greatest changes have happened when a couple of people said, this sucks, let's do something about it.
I can't have more than $2,000 in my bank account, or else I can't get disability benefits. They won't let you succeed.
I know we get paid to serve you guys, but be respectful. We're made out of the same things: bone, body, blood.
It's rare to have Black male teachers. Sometimes I am the lesson, and I'm also the testament.
Listen to When You're Invisible as part of the My Cultura podcast network. Available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. I'm excited to introduce a brand new season of my podcast, Math and Magic: Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing. I'm having conversations with some interesting folks across a wide range of industries to hear how they reach the top of their fields and the lessons they learned along the way that everyone can use. I'll be joined by innovative leaders like Chairman and CEO of Elf Beauty, Tarang Amin.
The way I approach risk is constantly try things and actually make it okay to fail.
I'm sitting down with legendary singer-songwriter and philanthropist Jewel.
I wanted a way to do something that I loved for the rest of my life.
We're also hearing how leaders brought their businesses out of unprecedented times, like Stefan Bancel, CEO of Moderna.
It becomes a human decision to decide to throw by the window your business strategy and to do what you think is the right thing for the world.
Join me as we uncover innovations in data and analytics, the math, and the ever-important creative spark, the magic. Listen to Math and Magic: Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast.
Other barriers are weather. And I know you live in Minnesota and you bike year round. So what do you do?
How do you do
do that?
Yeah. And the weather is a fair thing. So obviously spring, summer, fall, I think everyone can ride. Rain is the worst weather to ride in my opinion, because it's just really hard to keep yourself dry no matter what you wear. So if I had to pick any weather, I think rain is worse than like super cold. Um, for really cold weather here in Minnesota, right now, this morning it was minus 15. So yeah, that's really cold.
The wheels don't even turn. They're just frozen.
You just glide along the ice.
So yeah, well, so in really cold weather, it's all about like the clothing you wear. And especially, it's not so much keeping your like body warm as it is keeping like your hands and your neck and your face warm. And so the things that I have these things called bar mitts. They're called pogies also, that you put on the handlebars of your bike, and then your hands kind of just go in them basically. So it kind of like makes it makes like a glove around the handlebars. And
that's
I
nice.
don't understand how, these are like a total game changer, because I used to just wear like gloves. And, when you're wearing gloves, it's like hard to maneuver, and even your hands will still get cold. But with the pogies or the bar mitts, your hands are like just totally warm. I don't really understand how, but I can ride in 0-degree weather with no gloves, just my hands in there, and I'm totally fine.
Wow.
So and so that's a huge game changer. And you'll see a lot of people who ride in the cold have those. And then having like buff, it's called, or like a balaclava or something.
Balaclava,
it's like a face.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
I always want to
call
it baklava.
The dessert.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, balaclava.
But that is a big one too, because it covers like your face and your ears and everything and your neck. And if you cover like your hands and your neck and ears, you are not as cold as you would think you would be, because like your body itself, can stay warm. And obviously, you put on layers and that kind of stuff, snow pants and stuff like that. But, that's how I do it. And I mean, the way I look at it, like my kids are riding also in 10-degree weather in Minnesota winter, and they're doing fine. And so I think if these little kids can do it, I think a lot of people can probably ride in the winter, even if it's really cold.
Yeah, that's crazy. Any like advice for riding in the rain? Because maybe you are riding and it's not raining, but you get somewhere and it starts raining and you have to ride back. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so riding in the rain, if I'm going somewhere, I have to bring a change of clothes. It's just because I put on the raincoat and everything, and there's like these ponchos. I don't have one, but maybe I'll get one. But there are these like ponchos you can wear too. But right now, my thing is I put on a rain jacket and I still get wet, and I just have a change of clothes with me for when I get to wherever I'm going.
For one other barrier, I'm curious your thoughts for someone who'd be like, okay, but I'm in the suburbs or even a little bit more of a remote area. Is this even something that I should consider, when everything is 10, maybe plus miles away? What would you say to that person?
Yeah. So I think that people in the suburbs overestimate how far away things are from them, and they underestimate what kind of infrastructure they actually have out there. One of the big advantages with e-bikes is you can cover these big distances much faster. Like a mile on an e-bike is like 5 minutes, if you're biking at like regular e-bike speed. And so a 3-mile ride is like 15 minutes. And if you look at where the things you're going to, like grocery store and whatever, I bet you most of those things are within 5 miles or, 5 or 3 miles. And, there's like data from like the government that shows like the car trips people take, and like more than half of car trips people take are 3 miles or less. And like almost 2/3 of them are 5 miles or less. And these are all like perfect e-bike distances. And in the burbs, like one of the things that always kind of sucked about manual biking in the burbs is that you're kind of riding sometimes on like really boring stretches, like maybe it's like a sidewalk along like a huge street. But with the e-bike, you just get through that quickly. And so you don't really have to like worry about like being slow moving there. You just fly down the street as fast as you can. So that's what I would think is that most things are probably closer than you think. And even 10 miles, like 10 miles is kind of pushing the distances of like how far you want to e-bike. But if you think about it, even 10 miles, if you're biking like 20 miles per hour on an e-bike, 10 miles is like a half-hour bike ride, which isn't like a crazy time to bike.
Yeah. On an e-bike, are you keeping up with traffic or are you more so following like bike rules where you're riding on the side, people are passing you? What does that generally look like for you?
Yeah, I always stick to like whatever bike infrastructure I can find that's ideally separated, not just like a painted line. So most of the time, I'm just going like on bike infrastructure that's separated from traffic. Very rarely am I going to be like on the street with like fast moving traffic. If it's like a side street, I'll be on the street and then I'm just going with any traffic that's going. But if it's like a 50 mile per hour street, I'm not going to ride on that street. I'm going to like find a side street or I'm going to go on the sidewalk or hopefully maybe they have like a path or something.
Yeah.
So we've covered then a lot of barriers. What I'm hearing you say is, yeah, there's an issue or a problem and there's some sort of solution that we could find if we want to. So out of that, now that I'm a little bit like more convinced to give this a little look-see, can you talk about some of the savings that you've seen, kind of how this impacts finances?
Yeah, I'm sure you've done some math. I'd love to hear that.
Absolutely. So this is one of the things that, if you look at like what we spend the most on, it's typically housing, transportation, and food, right? So transportation for most households is the second highest expense. And you can kind of see why, if you have a house, 2 cars, right? And you look at how much the average car costs these days. It's like an average new car is like $45,000 or something crazy now, right? And if you look at like the data on how much a car costs to operate for like a year, it's typically like $10,000 to $12,000 a year. If you put in like insurance, gas, maintenance, depreciation, all that stuff, right? And that's just our costs, not like external costs like pollution and all that stuff. So that stuff is, you can see there's like a lot of money there to be spent on transportation. And I think it's kind of interesting because, you mentioned this, we talk about like housing stuff and like food stuff, and people will like do all sorts of crazy things to like reduce those costs, right? And you don't see that much people talking about reducing like transportation costs other than like just driving like an old car, driving, a cheaper car, something like that. And so like, I'll tell people like, oh, you should like just try, biking as like your main mode of transportation. And people will be like, that's crazy, right? Even at the same time, they're like, and I'm like in the financial independence community. So people will be like, these are people who are trying to like retire at like 35 years old. And then I'll tell them like, hey, why don't you bike everywhere? And they'll be like, that's impossible to do.
And retiring at 35 is possible.
I'd rather live on beans and rice.
Right. And I don't know why that is. But, if you look at just like the general savings right there, right? So if you're looking at $10,000 or $12,000 a year for a car, right? And you have 2 cars, I mean, you're looking at, $20,000 a year, $24,000 a year. But like, if you can replace even one of those cars, right? So you save yourself $10,000 or $12,000 a year, and that money, instead of spending on a car, you were invested or something. I mean, over the course of 30 years, that's like $1 million. And if you like invest in, you have like, pretty normal return. And, if you think about how long most people drive, most of us drive for more than 30 years. We probably drive for 50 years or something. So that could be literally millions of dollars that you can save and invest if you, put it to work on that. And meanwhile, like a bike, the maintenance cost of a bike is pretty much nothing. Like if for an e-bike, the cost of like the electricity for the battery is like 25 cents. It's like a couple bucks a year. It's literally like nothing. And the maintenance itself on the bike is not very expensive. It's, fixing flat tires, replacing some parts, these kind of things is maybe hundreds of dollars a year, for these kind of things.
And much easier to YouTube those solutions than to YouTube the fixes on a car.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, flat tires and stuff, you can do it yourself. Like, I don't do it myself because I just am so slow and horrible at doing it. So I always bring it in. But I mean, I bring it in, I get flat change. It's like $20, right? And it takes them half an hour. So so that's kind of some big savings there. And then, the cost of an e-bike obviously is way less than the cost of a car. I mean, you look at even buying if you buy a regular e-bike for $1,000 or something, or you said you had an e-bike that was only $500.
Well, he got it on Facebook Marketplace. It was originally a $1,500 e-bike that he got for $500. And that was the allure of buying it. He got a great deal on it.
And that is a great deal. And think about that. I mean, he could literally buy 10 new bikes every year for the cost of what it costs to keep a car going if you wanted to.
Man, not to mention, so as I mentioned, we have scooters and we kind of hack our transportation in that way. But one of the downsides for us where we live with the scooter is still needing to pay for parking. Whereas the benefit of something like an e-bike, it gets you there faster than even just biking does, but you still get all of the benefits of it just being a bike. Like for us, a scooter doesn't count like that. I can't just park it next to the bikes, and there are no scooter or motorcycle parking. So and you need to pay per scooter. You can't park 2 scooters in one spot and just pay for one spot.
And you have to renew the registration every year.
Right. Yeah. And it takes gas. But again, we can run on 1 tank of gas for over 100 miles per scooter. So it still is saving us tons on transportation, but this is definitely some strong benefits to the e-bike, kind of that even more radical middle of saving on transportation.
Something else I've been interested in is you do a lot of Uber Eats and food delivery on your bike. I'd love to hear about that. And do you feel like using the e-bike gives you an advantage over cars? You can get to places that others can't, or be faster, or just tell me about all of that.
Yeah. So for sure in a city, I live in a city, and I think that I'm definitely faster than people who are in a car because I don't have to worry about parking and traffic or anything like that. And then just from a delivery, just from a money standpoint, it costs me nothing pretty much to operate my e-bike. And so I'm making more when I'm doing the deliveries. And it makes it a little easier for me too. I do something when I'm doing food deliveries. I do multiple deliveries at once. It's called multi-apping. So I can instead of doing 1 delivery, I'll do 2 or 3 using different apps. And it's much easier with the e-bike because I don't have to worry about parking or traffic. So it's I can get from place to place a lot faster. And from food delivery standpoint, if you think about where restaurants tend to be, they usually tend to be in dense downtown areas where parking is difficult and traffic is heavy. And so the e-bike just has a huge advantage in being able to hang out in these downtown areas and get a lot of deliveries.
When you're hopping on, hopping off, do you have to be concerned about theft? Are you locking it up every single time?
Yeah. So it depends where I am and how much I trust the place. Most of the time, if I can see it from the restaurant, through the window, then I won't lock it up because I'm usually just in and out in a few seconds. But if is someplace that if I'm in certain places downtown, for example, I'm not going to leave the bike outside for even a second. So then I will lock it up. Or a lot of times restaurants, I'll kind of wheel it into the little entryway area and just put it in there. And
oh yeah, nice.
Kind of the foyer part, and no one ever really cares. So
yeah, again,
pull it right
where there's
there.
a will, there's a way.
Wow.
Yeah.
One other potential benefit I'm curious to hear your perspective on is just the way that e-biking most places shifts kind of lifestyle. So I'm thinking about if you're talking going to the grocery store or even taking your kids places that you just don't have the opportunity to carry as much, which there probably are pros and cons to that. But I'm curious about the pros, like the money savings or the ways that it shifted grocery shopping for you or simplified your life to whatever we can carry on the bike is what we can bring.
Yeah. So, so I do definitely stick to places that are like closer, which is kind of nice. So it's very easy for us to get to like the park and stuff like that, and the playground stuff, because we can just, I don't have to like load him into the car and like buckle him in. I can just like throw him on the bike and we're off. And then, we just pull right up to the playground and that's it. So that it does kind of shrink our world a little bit, which I think is good. I think a lot of us drive too far to places like we don't need to be going like to the other side of town for everything. So that's one thing. As far as like carrying things, I still carry a lot of stuff because we have that cargo bike. And so I do my Costco runs on that cargo bike.
No. Here I'm thinking, of course, you're not doing Costco on the bike.
Whoa.
What?
I do Costco runs. My Costco is 3 miles from my house, and it's all bike path to get there. The bike parking is right outside the front door. So, which is great. I never have to worry about because you know how Costco parking lots are kind of small and hard to park.
Most dangerous.
Yeah, I never have to worry about that. I just bike right up to the Costco, pull up to the front, lock my bike, and I'm in. And I'll buy like $300 worth of Costco stuff. It's because it's mainly because this one bike I have, the cargo box bike, is like I can fit so much stuff in it.
I want to know how many people are waiting for you outside, just video recording you loading up your Costco haul on your e-bike.
Yeah, people do it now. Yeah, I've filmed it some like to put on Instagram and stuff, so I can share a link or something if you want to see what it looks like. But yeah, that's how I do it. And then we'll usually, if we do like a Costco trip with the kids, we'll take like 2 bikes, and the kids will go on the other bike on the way back.
Nice.
And then I'll just use the one bike to load it up with stuff.
So last question. Tell us a little bit about the types, like the difference between the e-bike and the cargo bike and the prices and like what to look for, what to avoid.
Yeah. So like a regular e-bike, right? You can get them like, there's a lot of like entry level brands that you can get, and they'll be like $1,000 to $1,500 for like the regular entry level e-bike. I think those are great for anyone starting out because I like don't think you can lose on that. You're probably gonna get your $1,000 worth from if you use it like as transportation and not just as like a toy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of that one. And then when you get to like the cargo bikes, there are like entry level cargo bikes that are like in the $2,000 range. That are like the long tails. And then it can really start getting up and up. So the bike I have, the box bike, it's called an Urban Arrow. That bike was $7,000, which is obviously like a lot of money, like for someone, to hear that. But like when I got that bike, I got it I got that bike instead of getting a second car. And so if you think about that, that's actually like a really good price for like a car replacement, because even if I bought like a cheap used car, I would be probably spending double that, 15, 20 grand. And then
maintenance costs aren't there, the gas. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like my Urban Arrow, I can, maintain it. It's a couple $100 a year to maintain it. And I don't have to worry about insurance and gas and anything like that. And I use it as like my second vehicle, essentially. It's like my car for myself. Yeah. So, but it's not cheap. And I understand that. Like, it's hard to convince yourself when you hear someone say, oh yeah, this bike is $7,000 or whatever. But if you think of it as a transportation vehicle and not as a toy, then it starts to make a lot more sense. It's actually a bargain.
Yeah, and it's not the first bike you got either.
Yeah.
Like you got acquainted. First, you used your regular bike. Then you got your $1,500 e-bike and you worked up to where getting a $7,000 cargo bike made sense.
Right. And that's the thing. That would have been hard for me to do as my first bike. I have seen people do that. Like they'll just like jump right into that. I think it's better to just get a entry-level bike first and like see if you can do it, like if it makes sense. And then you can kind of work your way up to better bikes. Because
test the model.
There is a difference between like quality of bikes and like the more expensive bikes are better.
Well, speaking of something quality and everyone is the best. You don't have to work your way up to it.
No barrier.
Just dive right in. The Bill of the Week!
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
Kevin, every week we ask our listeners and our guests to share with us their favorite bill for the week, whether it be financial or physical or person, whatever. We're open. We're flexible. We would love to hear yours.
Yeah. So it can be like finding a bill, right? Or like getting like money.
Anything. Literally, we leave it vague for that reason. Could be anything.
Yeah. Great. Well, I did have a funny thing happen this week where there's a dog walking app called Wag. And I don't do a lot of dog walking these days with Wag. But the other day I got a thing saying that there was a dog available to walk, and it like showed the address as like literally my house. And I was like, what? I was like, it was like it had a circle and it was like on my house. I was like, what? Like this must be like a neighbor. So I was like, I'm just gonna do it. It's a 20-minute walk. It was paying $12. I was like, I'll just go for a walk with this dog. And it was for a house just like a block over. Wow. So I went over there and walked this dog around the neighborhood and made myself $12.
I love you, like your side hustling, how like you were a lawyer and now you like do all these side hustles and love your life and ride your e-bike. You are truly living the dream, I believe. I believe that. So that's awesome.
So fun. What a great bill. That the $12, it probably wasn't even just about that, but I'm kind of hearing like, I'll get out for a walk too. Like there's benefit to me in this.
The dream.
And I'm helping somebody out. And then I'm, getting to buy a burrito later.
Yeah. And I got a peek inside their house too, So it's like, ooh, what's this guy's house look like?
Could be the nosy neighbor.
That cannot be loud. Underrated. Yeah, that is a big perk.
I was like, ooh, this is a nice kitchen.
If you all listening have a bill that you want to submit, if it's about a side hustle, if it's about making just a little bit of money but getting a peep on your neighbor, or if it's about making a lot of money and maybe no peeps, or your name is Bill and people are peeping on you, frugalfriendspodcast.com/Bill. Cannot wait to hear it.
Hey y'all, I'm Maria Fernanda Diez. My podcast, When You're Invisible, is my love letter to the working class people and immigrants who shaped my life. I get to talk to a lot of people who form the backbone of our society, but who have never been interviewed before. Season 2 is all about community, organizing, and being underestimated.
All the greatest changes have happened when a couple of people said, this sucks, let's do something about it.
I can't have more than $2,000 in my bank account, or else I can't get disability benefits. They won't let you succeed.
I know we get paid to serve you guys, but like, be respectful. We're made out of the same things: bone, body, blood.
It's rare to have Black male teachers. Sometimes I am the lesson, and I'm also the testament.
Listen to When You're Invisible as part of the My Cultura podcast network. Available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Bob Pittman, Chairman and CEO of iHeartMedia. I'm excited to introduce a brand new season of my podcast, Math and Magic, Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing. I'm having conversations with some interesting folks across a wide range of industries to hear how they reach the top of their fields and the lessons they learned along the way that everyone can use. I'll be joined by innovative leaders like Chairman and CEO of Health Beauty, Tarang Amin.
The way I approach risk is constantly try things and actually make it okay to fail.
I'm sitting down with legendary singer-songwriter and philanthropist Jewel.
I wanted a way to do something that I loved for the rest of my life.
We're also hearing how leaders brought their businesses out of unprecedented times, like Stefan Bancel, CEO of Moderna.
It becomes a human decision to decide to throw by the window your business strategy and to do what you think is the right thing for the world.
Join me as we uncover innovations in data and analytics, the math, and the ever-important creative spark, the magic. Listen to Math and Magic, Stories from the Frontiers of Marketing on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast.
September 1979. Virginia's top prison band, Edge of Daybreak, is about to record their debut album, Behind Bars. In just 5 hours.
Okay, we're rolling. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Jamie Petrus, music and culture writer. For the past 5 years, I've been talking to the band's 3 surviving members. They're out of prison now and in their 70s. Their past behind them. But they also have some unfinished business.
The Edge of Daybreak, Eyes of Love, was supposed to have been followed up by another album.
It's a story about the liberating power of music, the American justice system, and ultimately, second chances. Listen to Soul Incarcerated on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously, the best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
And now it's time for the lightning round. Pew, 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 pew. All right. This is one we will all answer. Where's the best place you have ever rode a bike or e-bike? Either in or to. Kevin, you can go first.
The best place?
Yeah, either you've rode around or rode to.
Yeah. Well, so there's a event here in Minnesota called Camp Fi. The guy holds it every around fall or whatever, right at the end of the summer. And I have gone twice, and I've spoken there about e-bikes too. And I always bike out there. It's like 40 miles going out there.
Whoa!
So I bring 2 batteries just in case I run out. Usually I don't need to switch batteries, but I'll just bring a second one just in case. And this ride is actually really good because even this is like an example of a ride which you wouldn't think is possible because it's so far, but there's a bike path that goes all the way out there. So I can go from literally my house to this place that's 40 miles way, way out in the countryside. And I never have to even interact with traffic the whole way.
Whoa. When we went to Camp Fi, you would not have wanted to. There is no bike path in Gainesville for that one.
Highways are the toughest part too with that kind of thing, but usually there's a way around it. And
I can't believe there are not more people in the financial independence community e-biking after that.
I think I convinced some people, but I always am trying to convince as many people as I can.
I hope people are convinced after hearing this episode.
You are helping to convince me.
I hope.
For sure.
Okay. For me, I have only done maybe 20 yards on an e-bike in my life. It was an exhilarating experience. But so I will talk about my favorite bike ride was on the Pinellas Trail. We did 20 miles. I don't know if that was my favorite now. We also did, I've changed it mid-answer. It was a 20-mile ride through St. Petersburg, again, on the Pinellas Trail, but then we transferred to the Skyway Trail midpoint. And we went down to like one of the most southern parts of Pinellas County, and we were at the water, we got to see the Skyway Bridge, we got to like eat our lunch on this fishing pier, and we rode with our friends, Jess and Joseph, and we got away from Kai for a day. We didn't have Atlas at that point, but it was just a magical bike ride with friends. I loved that one. That one's my favorite.
I love how when you get away from your children, you choose to run or bike. It's like, you've got childcare. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to run a half marathon. I'm going to ride my bike 20 miles both ways.
Oh, yeah. The other story was also we got rid of Kai. Kai started like daycare, I think. And Travis had a day off and we did 20 miles from I think Dunedin to Tarpon Springs. So that was 10 miles there and then 10 miles back.
Good on you. I don't have kids, but I feel like my answer when I've got childcare would be nap. I am going to take a nap.
So my mom is watching the kids this weekend, and Travis and I are like, can you actually watch them not at our house? Because we would like to be at our house without the kids. I think we just want to lay down.
Get stuff done.
Travis wants to play video games and work on his other... He bought another... I left for a book signing, and 4 hours later he calls. He's like, I bought this vintage like 1980s Honda motorcycle that's worth like $2,000 for $500.
It is really cool, but you need to stop leaving, or he needs to stop buying two-wheeled vehicles.
So he wants to work on his bike and play video games. And I'm like, good on ya. I want that for you.
Okay, for me, most recent thing that comes to mind, we rented bikes in Portugal and rode from the city to the beach. And that was idyllic. Just to be able to take in so much more than you would by car, but be able to get further than we would have on foot. Biking is the radical middle. And
E-bikes.
And we were with friends.
Very much the radical middle.
Yeah, it was Eric and I, and then two friends. And we were just doing our little bells back and forth and stopping along the way to take pictures and just riding to the beach all leisurely. It was awesome. Good memories.
Oh my gosh. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find more from you if you've convinced them e-bikes are the way?
Yeah, you can check out my blog, financialpanther.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, Financial Panther, that I film myself kind of biking around doing food deliveries and stuff. And I'm trying to do more content on biking around with like my family and stuff to show people how it's done. But those are the two places to check me out on.
Oh, that's awesome. Got to see you loading up Costco on that bike. That's what we need.
We need more Costco content.
Thanks for being here, Kevin.
Oh yeah, my last video I made was me taking my Christmas tree back to my house on a cargo bike.
Okay. Checking out YouTube now.
Sold. Financial Panther on YouTube and Instagram and .com.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we were definitely asking questions off the cuff here too, because it was so interesting to hear all of these new things. And I'm so glad that we got to share Kevin with you and share e-bikes with you, because I hope maybe it just inspires you to get an e-bike and you commit to riding it in summer, spring, and fall. And you don't do it in the winter. Or maybe you're in Florida like us and you choose to do it fall, winter, spring, and not in the summer rainy season. Or you just choose to commit to it every day except on days when it's raining. And then you find an alternative.
Yeah.
Like, getting creative is what's going to save you more money than just trying to like negotiate your insurance down, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a good tip. It can help you, but like getting creative, it's what's really going to drastically move the needle if you need that needle moved.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not for forever, but even for a time, if we're working towards certain financial goals. I did the math too, just for us personally. And Kevin is dead on with the amount that owning a vehicle costs year over year. And of course, if you factor in a car payment to that, then until the car is paid off, you're looking at an average of, $15,000 to $17,000 annually paid to a vehicle in all kind of forms. Year over year until the car is paid off, and then it's dropping you to about maybe $10,000 a year. But it's not nothing. I think we approach car ownership like, well, you have a car and transportation is covered, and that's just not true. Even once you own the car, there's still a good amount of costs associated with it. So wherever we can think about even just decreasing the amount of cars that we own, driving our cars less, certainly considering e-biking. And maybe even when we're considering where we're buying our next house, how much might we be able to consider? How close are we to public transportation? Or how bikeable is the city? How feasible might it be for me to live closer to my work so that we don't have to have two vehicles? Like, that conversation can come into play. I think sometimes we'll say, I'm going to move outside the city so that it's less expensive, but run the numbers on then what you'll pay for transportation and consider, okay, well, what is the actual trade-off here?
Yeah, what if I lived in the city close to the things I want to be to and opted for an e-bike? How much easier is it to then get around in the city? How much more accessible? And I loved what he said about a lot of the times that we are driving too far for things. When we are forced to stay in a closer proximity, then we're forced to get to know people in that proximity.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is highly undervalued.
Agreed.
So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating, review, comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help. If you have read our book, Buy What You Love Without Going Broke, and you haven't left a rating and review for that on Amazon or Goodreads, we would ask that you do that, kind of like Bonnie Meadows did, gave us 5 stars. They say, best money book ever, especially if you tried all other tactics. I have been at the money management game for a while. I'm in my mid-40s. I'm a nurse and make good money. But because of the way I grew up, I never learned how to actually manage money to make it work in my favor. After trying several books and budgeting systems, I know how to make a budget. But again, how do I make it work for me? I knew I needed a behavior change and a new thought process. Most books don't offer a way to change your thoughts, but this book does. This book helps you think about money in a way you have never thought of before, gives you great tools about how to think about money, and helps you define how to identify what your money says you love and what you actually say that you love. Then it helps me figure out how to spend money on the things I love and not on the things right in front of my face. If you love the podcast Frugal Friends, you will love the book even more.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Even more. That's amazing,
Wow.
Bonnie Meadows. Thanks for such
Thank
a
you.
beautiful review. So kind and encouraging and helpful to other people who might be thinking about reading the book. So if you've not picked up the book, please do so. We really do believe in it.
Yeah, buywhatyoulovebook.com. There's even instructions on that page on how to request it at your library.
Yay. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye. Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Yeah, it's making me want to get on my bike more, just even my regular bike. Although I do love scootering around.
I have horrible balance. I've stated this. But I can do long bike rides on trails. What makes me nervous is sidewalks and roads with cars. So it encouraged me that Kevin was not like, oh, you'll just get better and you'll get over it. He's like, no, when you're in bike mode, like mindset, instead of car mindset, then you look for the roads and you find the roads more easily that are good for biking.
Yeah. I am curious to like map out different paths to some of the places that we go.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And now that we have an e-bike in our home, so if you wanted to try one out,
heck yeah,
come over.
Yeah.
So it's a thrill.
I bet. Well, I mean, I love our scooter. That's super fun. And like we can keep up with the cars in the city. Like we kind of more ride it like a motorcycle. Like you can't take the bike paths with the scooter. But I prefer to do that when I'm riding with Eric. I've ridden alone a couple of times, but it does feel it is risky. Like it is like I'm riding a motorcycle around. And so
I wouldn't like to ride a scooter or motorcycle on the road, but I would ride a bike on a bike path.
Yeah.
That feels better to me. And you can ride e-bikes on bike paths.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. There you go. I think it's the radical middle.
Okay, let's do it.
Right.
Let's get on our bike.
In a world of economic uncertainty and workplace transformation, learn to lead by example from visionary C-suite executives like Shannon Schuyler of PwC and Will Pearson of iHeartMedia.
The good teacher explains, the great teacher inspires.
Don't always leave your team to do the work. That's been the most important part of how to lead by example.
Listen to Leading by Example, Executives Making an Impact on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Emiolea, host of the podcast Crumbs. For years, I had to rely on other people to tell me my story. And what I heard wasn't good. You really last night. It felt like I lived most of my life in a blackout. I was trapped in addiction. I had to grab the lamp and smashed it against the walls. And then I decided I wanted to tell my own story. Listen to Crumbs on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, I'm Maria Fernanda Diaz. When You're Invisible is my love letter to the working class people and immigrants who shaped me. Season 2 shares stories about community and being underestimated.
All the greatest changes have happened when a couple of people said, this sucks. Let's do something about it.
We get paid to serve you, but we're made out of the same things.
It's rare to have Black male teachers. Sometimes I am the testament.
Listen to When You're Invisible on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Mel Reid, LPGA Tour winner and 6-time Ladies European Tour winner.
And Kira K. Dixon, NBC Sports reporter and host.
And we've got a new podcast, Quiet Please, with Mel.
And Kira, we are bringing you spicy takes on sports and pop culture, some interviews with incredible people who have figured out how to make golf their superpower.
An iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Presented by Elf Beauty, founding partner of iHeart Women's Sports.